There are lawyers out there trying to innovate, but then you bump into the case law, the ethics rules that you mentioned, the judges. And so how do you attack that?
Boy, it is tough. It is. I think this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is really to try and make change happen in law. I think what you do is you start a conversation. This is my strategy, is start a conversation as broadly as you possibly can with the lawyers themselves. Forget about the regulators. Forget about the 7 justices sitting up in their, ivory tower. Go to the lawyers and say, look what is happening to you, because your practice, you can't sell it. You can't sell it to anybody else who's not a lawyer, and you're going to get pennies on the dollar for that. So why would you invest in anything as a law firm owner? Because you can't protect it. And so you go to the people and you say, look, if you got rid of Rule 5.4 that limits ownership of a law firm to lawyers, and you had the option to sell that to not just other lawyers, but accountants or whatever it might be, or your own team, if you're big enough to sell it to your own team, then you're going to invest and you're going to increase the value and you're going to stick around, and then you're going to be able to retire with something.
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. This is a podcast where I get to interview law firm founders and leaders and hear about some of the cool stuff they're doing. And I'm really excited about today's episode. This is someone I've been hoping to get on here for quite a while. He finally said, yes, let's do it. So excited to welcome David Johnson to the podcast. He is the owner, CEO, leader of Modern Family Law, which is a pretty big family law firm. It spans, I think you may have more now, but at least 12 locations across 4 states. And I know that is growing by the year. So we can talk about that too. So welcome to the show, Dave.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate the invite.
All right. So let's talk, sort of give us the stats of your firm so we can sort of get the lay of the land. I think I got that right. 12 offices, 4 states, but tell me how many attorneys and all of that.
Yeah. So Modern Family Law started in about 2017. We have 165 employees as of my last count, about 63 lawyers. As I think I saw 63, 64 lawyers as I saw today. We do have 12 locations, but we are busy opening 3 new locations in Georgia, right across the street from, one of them's right across the street from your office in Atlanta. Beautiful new space there that I think will go live November 1. And then another location in Savannah and another location in Alpharetta. Busy. In fact, I think my ops director flies out there on Tuesday to look at those spaces. Let's see, what else can I tell you about it? We're projected to have gross revenues of about 28 million, 29 million this year. Next year, we project about 44. We are on a 3-year strategic plan, and that should get us to about 90 million at the end of the strategic plan. And I would guess, about 450 to 500 employees at that point. Growth is great. We are a very tech-heavy firm. We do family law. We're based out of Colorado. I live in San Francisco. My license is in Colorado. And I practiced, I think, 30 years at this point, more than 30 years, family law cases. And yeah, so now I just focus on running the firm. What else can I say about that? Our practice is mostly remote. I would consider it hybrid, but we certainly don't have any requirements to be in the office. We build really nice space at each location to try and pull people in to enjoy the space instead of mandating that they come in. So that's Modern Family Law, busy spot.
Man, that's a lot to unpack. But first of all, congrats, man. That is tremendous growth. I mean, so 2017. So we're at about 8 years. I mean, that is tremendous growth. I'm curious if I plotted it on a graph, is it hockey stick? Does it look like a hockey stick, or is it more linear, steady, growth look?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you just took the gross revenue, it's kind of linear. It's not exponential growth. But we this year will be about 63% growth. So it's very healthy. But 63% is really hard to pull off. And so next year I think we're projecting 53% next year. But yeah, it's substantial growth, and it is the biggest challenge in the business is managing that growth, bringing in the people, and creating systems and processes that are scalable and sustainable.
Yes. So I don't even know if we're gonna have time to dig into all of this, but there's so much there that I want to talk about. So, but let's sort of, before we dig into all that, let's sort of go back. So I guess some of the baseline questions. What led you to the law, first of all, and then what sort of led you to family law?
Well, my undergraduate degree is philosophy, and my family, you had to be a professional of some sort growing up. And so my brother's a doctor, and I got to be a lawyer. And so it was just kind of the expectation. My passion as a little kid and high school and all that kind of stuff was computers. Man, I tried everything I could to get into every computer lab I possibly could get into. But pressure from the parents to get into law school. And luckily, I kind of had the freedom to embrace technology throughout my career. Started my own firm right out of law school, went over to a different firm as a partner about 3 years after starting, and then broke back off and did my own thing for a long time. And it's basically been, an evolution from that point forward. But what got me into law, really, like I said, it was my parents, but family law in particular. My parents went through the worst divorce you can imagine, did everything wrong. And the lawyers were absolutely no help. In fact, they did what they could to aggravate the situation. And I watched what happened in their divorce kind of destroy the family as a whole. I was 13, I think, when they got divorced. And I went to, I think it was 5 different schools in 4 years, just from moving around a lot. And so that's why I do this, is I have deep personal experience with divorce.
And does that shape? Thank you for sharing that. Does that shape how sort of the approach that your firm takes in divorce? Like you said,
Completely.
the attorneys exacerbated it or made it worse, and
Right.
I guess you guys try to do the opposite.
It completely shapes it. Yeah. I mean, why would I do this to anybody else after having gone through it myself? And so, yeah, I pay very close attention to that. And we do our best to make sure we provide, the best service possible, drive conflict down. If you look at our website, modernfamilylaw.com, you will see pictures of smiley, happy people everywhere all the time, because it's aspirational, right? You want to get to that point again in your life. And it's very successful marketing that way, because people do want hope. They do want to get through this with something intact. And so, that experience completely shapes how I have built the firm, and how we present ourselves and the work that we do, right, and our focus. So yeah, I never understood the sharks circling the boat advertising, or people sitting on the edge of the bed crying. I'm like, who wants that? It's not something that makes you pick up the phone and call.
I remember, I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but I remember sort of in the wake of the great financial crisis, there's a firm who I won't name that had an ad on the radio, divorce firm. And this, basically the ad was, your assets have gone way down in value. Now's the time to get divorced. It's
Oh my
like,
God, yeah.
what kind of ad what kind of ad is that?
Right. I mean, they still do that, right? They're like,
Uh,
your retirement is at the peak. This is the perfect time to get divorced. I'm like, oh geez,
uh,
yeah, I don't understand that. And I don't understand creating fear in people. Obviously, father's rights is a fear-based movement intended to scare men into acting a certain way, or engaging a particular firm. And yeah, try and steer clear of any sort of fear-based marketing, or anything like that. It needs to be aspirational, I think.
so let's talk. So you are, I guess, is it CEO? Is that your title? And you don't do any legal work anymore. You're strategic and leader and all that. When did you start to take a step back from actually doing the legal work?
Gosh, it was probably 2019. I remember walking out of the courthouse in Douglas County, Colorado, thinking this is the last case. This is the last time I will be, at the podium. And so far, that's been right. I haven't handled a case since then. But yeah, everything after 2019 has been administrative. I still consider myself practicing law. I don't know what that phrase means. Practice law. Does that mean you have to stand at a podium? You know as well as I do. No, it doesn't. You don't have to be a litigator to be a lawyer. And you could be in-house counsel, right? And you have one client, kind of even. I don't even know if that's an employer. I don't know if it's even a client. So, I consider myself still practicing law, but just not handling cases.
And so how was that process for you? I know some lawyers it's sort of a hard, their vision or a view of themselves, it's hard to get away from that. And others it's very easy. So that's part of it. But then the other part is, just, brass tacks. It's how do you get out of the production and how do you start to get everybody else to do it? What was your process like?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because financially, that's a hit on the firm to suddenly start paying a salary instead and not have any revenue directly generated from that chair. So you have to be at a position financially where you can just live on a salary. And I don't remember what my salary was when I started, but it wasn't much. I was definitely not the highest paid person in the firm. And you do have to be willing to take that hit initially, and then just over time as the firm increases, make more room for income. But emotionally, yeah, it was a challenge. It felt really weird to think this was the last time I would be standing at the podium, but it's been a rewarding and just a fantastic transition to move on. I have freedom to do a lot of different things, whether it's marketing or finance or HR or whatever it might be. You get to kind of branch out and do new things. So I know that it's a financial hit to just focus on management, but man, that's the key, right? Trying to run a firm in the margins before bedtime after you fed the kids is not a productive time to run a firm. You have to have it, dedicated resources to management of the firm.
So true. It is really hard to do both production and, the, I guess, leadership strategy. It's just really hard, especially, I mean, maybe that's how you've grown so big in such a short time. I mean, that's really, really, really impressive growth. So I want to ask on that topic. You started in Colorado. What was the first sort of state you expanded to? And then what was that like? It's one thing to add an
California.
office. Okay, it's to California. So it's one thing to add an office in the same state, same jurisdiction, same rules, blah, blah, blah. To do it in another state, it's just challenging. I mean, you gotta find lawyers. You gotta manage from, more than one location. How was that for you? Was it easy?
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, you don't know which. I mean, and it's not easy to do it in the same state. I remember when we decided to open up in Colorado Springs from Denver, I considered that to be an experiment to see whether we could actually manage remotely. And it took a long time to get that like stood up. But doing it in another state is a whole level of trouble that you don't anticipate. The travel back and forth and the expense of the travel back and forth and the rules and the environment. I mean, that you're in Colorado. I knew my competitors, I knew the lawyers, I knew the judges. You walk into California, I'm like, who are these people? I don't know who the players are. I don't know how they all work together. So yeah, it's totally blind coming into a new state. At least for us, that first venture into California, did not know what we were doing. Made more mistakes than anything else, I think, and sloppy launch. But over time, you get better at it and better at it. And now I can drop into a city and basically start challenging the biggest player in that city within a year. And that's just the refined process of how many days to get from meeting with the realtor to opening the office to having your design to setting up the bank accounts. Got a phone call from our banker yesterday to set up the bank in Atlanta. All of those things that you've done before, if you just make a project on some sort of project management software, you can do it again and again and again and make it better and more productive. And so yeah, that first one sucked. That was a nightmare, really.
And I'll say very aggressive to go to California first, the home
Yep.
of the most regulations,
Yeah. Oh,
regulations you didn't even know
California.
existed, right? Yeah.
Shoot, it is a tough market.
It's all downhill from there, expanding to other states.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't want to beat up on California too much because I love it here
yeah,
and it's been
yeah.
very good to us. And, but yeah, it is a tough place to do business.
Well, it's interesting. So you're in 4 and now you're about to be in 5 in Georgia. And you said you're opening 3 locations basically simultaneously, it sounds like.
Kind of,
Um,
yeah.
and you don't have to, give secret sauce or anything, but what's your thinking behind 3 versus just, hey, let's try one first? Why go
Yeah.
3?
One's unstable. You bring in a team of 3 people into one location and they all leave. What do you got? Or I mean, it's just a very unstable effort to put one into a state. 2 didn't feel very secure either, because it's what I've discovered is it's really hard to keep all of them open, all of them running, all of them successful at once. And having 3, you create a synergy between the 3 where the managing attorneys can cover for each other. If one leaves, you've got backup. The teams aren't so isolated. They know each other. They know the managing attorneys. You can cover more of the states. There's overlapping counties between Alpharetta and Atlanta, right? And so you can handle things back and forth between the locations. 3 is a good number to start with, in my opinion, and it's a very manageable number operationally. Seems to be the magic number to make it work. But 1, I have a friend who's starting, and he's probably going to see this, so I don't want to call him out. But I have a friend who's starting 1 location in one other state, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's going to be your full-time job.
That's really interesting and counterintuitive, I got to say. Most people would say, I'm going to go to another state. It's safer to do 1. And you're saying, no, it's safer to do 3.
Yeah,
The
I
other
would I
thing,
would say it's safer to do 3.
now it takes more capital to do 3 versus 1, I imagine as well. I mean, you're signing 3 different leases. So you
Yeah,
got to be in a place that you can do it.
but I mean, you've done a lease. I think not very far from our building in Atlanta. You know how they work. You have to lay out some cash, but they'll give you free rent. They'll build out the space. You can keep your overhead, your startup cost with regard to rent, pretty manageable. The startup costs that kick my butt when I'd go in, the marketing costs and the payroll, because when we open up in Atlanta, we're not going to have 1 client, right? And I still got to
Yeah.
pay all these people, and I got to keep attracting people, and so I got to advertise like a fiend to get some cases in there to start generating revenue. But yeah, it's not the rent that gets you; it's the payroll and the marketing.
So let me ask. So, I've heard, historically, many law firms, they bill once per month. I know a lot of family law firms will do twice a month. Some do every week. Do you, where do you fall in that? And I guess if you do it weekly, that helps with cash flow versus every
We
month.
do, yeah, we do twice a month. I know our biggest competitor does once a week, kind of the same structure that we have. But I found that twice a month is just fine for cash flow. And also, I mean, it's not, it gets billing gets center stage, when it's that day. No, today's our billing day, right? And so the team in the morning has to do all that, the review the bills and then get them out and that kind of thing. And that's a big huge project. I think we have almost 1,300 clients, and so that's quite a project twice a month.
And so the billing, I would imagine marketing, billing, a lot of the operations is centralized. So it truly is sort of a scaling type, activity for you. When you go to a firm, you've got these,
Yeah.
You got sort of the back office already taken care of. So that's way, it's okay. I'm starting to hear it. I
Yeah, I
can
mean,
see how
each department
three
is
offices.
scalable, right? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't create twice the work. It really is, we just, yeah, I've got an ops team that has to go get the space and fill it up and that kind of thing. Marketing, we already have the programs, we already have the pay-per-click stuff, and they're already doing SEO. And so, I mean, it's not that much more for the internal teams to handle once it gets open.
Okay, I got it. So okay, so we've talked a little bit about one piece of advice is one is too few, and three it feels like the right number. What other advice would you give for somebody who's thinking about going cross border to open up a new office?
Well, I think the key has got to be technology, has got to be your systems and processes, standardizing those over and over and over again. Always look for pain points. For example, when you add, like we'll add 100 people next year, can you imagine setting up 100 computers, right? And shipping those out and training them? I mean, if you don't have a system and a process, you will never ever be able to do that. And so spend time on your processes, and that will really make it doesn't, if you have the right process, it's not going to matter whether it's down the street or across the country.
Do you guys have some sort of internal like training university, for lack of a better word, that you've developed for your internal people?
Yeah, yeah. Amy Larson is our director of development, and she's a former judge out of Texas. And she's got a team. I think her team is like 5 people now, and they do all the onboarding and all the CLE training, and they just basically handle professional development for the firm. And she's fantastic at it. And we've got software we use. I forget the name of it. It's an LMS, learning management system, where you create the content, you put it up there, you organize it, and you refresh it when you need to. But yeah, so she's got training programs for people that come in as law students, people who come in as lawyers who've been around for 3 years that need to learn our process. She's got training programs for managing attorneys when they become managing attorney. We have 3 managing attorneys in that program right now. So yeah, and Amy's up working on our leadership retreat in December right now too. So yeah, we've got a team that's dedicated to development.
So you're a computer guy, you like computers. Do you guys have any proprietary software that you've developed, or do you take sort of off the shelf and I guess customize it?
Everything is customized. We develop almost everything. We use Salesforce as the background, or the scaffolding, if you will, the skeleton, and then we attach things to it. And so when somebody says, well, what platform are you on? I really can't answer that very clearly because I don't know what you mean. Are we on billing? Okay, we use TimeSolve. What about document storage? We use NetDocs. What about, onboarding? I forget the name of the software we use for onboarding. But we've got all these different packages that we customize, that we use the APIs to tie in to Salesforce. And then we
Yeah.
have, customized client portal, which is consuming a lot of time too. But yeah, I mean, I try and stay away from the off the shelf project management stuff. I feel like you are working for them at a certain point, and your practice is really regulated by how they decide you should practice. So we like to do it our own.
Great point. For some people say, well, you're big, you can afford to do that, but you're a computer
Mm.
guy, so maybe you were doing that in the beginning.
Yeah, you got to do it from the beginning. You got to stay away from that. It's almost like a drug, where you get lazy and you say you buy. I don't want to, I don't want to denigrate any project or case management package, but pick one, and it's easy. You pay your user licensing fee once a year or once a month or whatever it might be, and you don't have to think about it. But they do all the thinking for you when it comes to management, and you will practice how they tell you to practice forever.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about innovation a little bit. I think you're on some innovation committee. You can tell me about that. And when I say innovation, it is, technology, AI, that's part of it, but also perhaps softening of some of the traditional rules. So I guess, first of all, tell me what you're involved in and sort of what you're seeing.
Yeah. So I'm on the executive committee of the Colorado Bar Association, and they decided to form a task force on artificial intelligence and innovation. And I told the president of the Bar Association that this is why I would go on the executive committee, was because I wanted to work on modernizing the business of the law. And so he put me in charge of it. Okay. And it has been a wild ride. Basically, the what we are looking at is, how do you advance the adoption of artificial intelligence in the legal community? How do you get people to use it? How do you teach people how to use artificial intelligence in their practice to help their clients? And then how do we modify the rules so that lawyers are motivated to learn artificial intelligence and to innovate in their practice? Because right now, there's no motivation whatsoever to be more efficient or productive, right? If I can take a 5-hour task and turn it into a 20-minute task, I lose a ton of money, right? So why would I ever invest in technology or innovation or productivity if it's going to cost me more money than I'll be bankrupt. So the rules themselves, and this is a huge point of argument going on here in Colorado right now on this committee and this task force and within the executive committee itself, is the rules themselves have locked lawyers into places we don't want to be, right? We always complain about the billable hour and how we're tied to this wheel that just sends us in circles. That's because of Rule 1.5, which says value equals time. My argument is value is elemental. It doesn't equal anything. Value is value, right? There's no combination of anything that adds up to value. And so get rid of this by the hour metric so that lawyers are actually motivated and incentivized to go be more productive and be more efficient and to open up their services. And I had a discussion with somebody who's not on the committee, but is on the bench in Colorado. And his argument, he said, 1.5 value to the how are you going to stop people from, taking advantage of clients? And he pointed me toward New York. And he said, look at what New York has done on Rule 1.5. And I went and looked at it, and basically their rule is that if you can do a task that normally would have taken 5 hours by pushing a button, you can still only charge for the time that it took you to push the button. And I said, that's absolutely absurd. That is absolutely absurd. And if you guys do that in Colorado, I will be the first one at the podium to say this is wrong. This is on you, regulators, not on lawyers. And if you want access to justice, if you want us to go out into the public and reach into the communities who either don't have enough money to pay lawyers as they are now, or who don't have access to lawyers because they live so far away from a metro area, then you have to let this rule go, because it's not financially feasible for me to serve these people out there in the remote areas, or who can't afford the average cost of a divorce, about $15,000. We will never be able to reach into those communities until you detach value from time. So that's one of the big focuses of innovation, is just letting lawyers innovate. I mean, we could talk about it. You and I could talk about it till we're blue in the face. But if we don't have a motivation to go out and do it, we're never going to do it.
Yeah, just on that point, just for a minute. So, there are, for example, family law firms that do this sort of staged flat fee billing. There are, contingency firms, obviously. I recently met a lawyer that does really pure subscription style family law work, which is interesting to me. But yes, you go to, let's say you have a fee petition in a court, all the judges, it's all about your time. It's what's your rate and how much time. And if you go in there with something different, they'll say, no, you're not getting it. When I'm with you. Now, I've heard stories where somebody's, they write a letter and get the client, $1 million. It took them 2 hours to write the letter, let's say, to write it, send it. How much is that worth? How much is that worth? It's worth $1 million at least to the client. And if you're doing it just time, it's not really capturing the value delivered. And so I'm with you. There are lawyers out there trying to innovate, but then you bump into the case law, the ethics rules that you mentioned, the judges. And so how do you attack that?
Boy, it is tough. I think this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is really to try and make change happen in law. I think what you do is you start a conversation. This is my strategy, is start a conversation as broadly as you possibly can with the lawyers themselves. Forget about the regulators. Forget about the 7 justices sitting up in their, ivory tower. Go to the lawyers and say, look what is happening to you, because your practice, you can't sell it. You can't sell it to anybody else who's not a lawyer, and you're going to get pennies on the dollar for that. So why would you invest in anything as a law firm owner? Because you can't protect it. And so you go to the people and you say, look, if you got rid of Rule 5.4 that limits ownership of a law firm to lawyers, and you had the option to sell that to not just other lawyers, but accountants or whatever it might be, or your own team, if you're big enough to sell it to your own team, then you're going to invest and you're going to increase the value and you're going to stick around, and then you're going to be able to retire with something. But right now it's a zero value, $0 exit, right? Your plan is to get the hell out of there, owing no money, but really not having any money either, except for what you made in fees. And no other business operates that way. So I think you go to the lawyers and you explain why it's in their self-interest to change these rules. And the innovation that the lawyers will engage in and the technology they will adopt serves the clients, serves the public, right? So yeah, you're talking about that letter that made $1 million. How many lawyers would start the bidding process to write that letter, right? Do you write it for 300,000? Well, the next lawyer comes along and says, well, I'll write it for you for 200,000. Next lawyer comes along and says, I'll write it for you for 50,000. And then you create somewhere is equilibrium, right?
Mm-hmm.
The value now becomes identifiable. So, as far as creating change, I have argued this with, judges up and down that bench, that the right way to do this change is to start with the lawyers, and change their minds about their own profession.
Real quick, if you haven't gotten a copy yet, please check out my book, The Law Firm Life Cycle. It's written for law firm owners and those who plan to be owners. In the book, I discuss various issues that come up as a law firm progresses through the stages of its growth, from just before starting a firm to when it comes to an end. The Law Firm Life Cycle is available on Amazon. Now back to the show. All right, so I want to get to non-lawyer ownership, but before we get there, I want one last question about sort of Rule 1.5 and hourly type fees. The scenario you mentioned where, what used to take 5 hours, you can hit a button, it takes 20 minutes or maybe less. What ideas do you have for replacing sort of the traditional billable hour? Is it that we just let lawyers go out and try a lot of different things to see what works, or do you have some ideas of how it should be replaced?
I don't think you replace the billable hour, because I think there are clients and cases where the billable hour makes sense, right? And Jeff Bezos' divorce would not be a flat fee. that is an hourly situation. So I think, first of all, you look at mixed fee agreements, mixed arrangements with clients. You do subscription models for people who don't need much help at all. And none of this is permitted by rule at the moment. So, if you do a subscription model now, you still have to substantiate your subscription fee with a affidavit that says I worked so many hours, right? So it's still, time is value is time. But true subscription model, I think works great in a family law setting. And I really wish the courts would let us switch to a true subscription model for that 75% of the economic spectrum that isn't being served by the lawyers right now, because they don't consider it to be worth it. A big chunk of that could probably just be a subscription model. And what's the motivation for the client if they have to think about how long do they want to fight, right? The longer they fight, the more it costs them. And so their motivation is to keep it short. And I think that's great. I think that is a wonderful motivation for people, because they will pick and choose their fights more tightly if they know that fight is going to, extend the life of their case, and they're going to continue to pay. So subscription is one way. Flat fee is another. They have this unbundled legal services in Colorado, and I think that it's probably scattered across the country. Unbundled legal services where you can partition, I'm going to do this paperwork for you for blank amount of money, but I'm not going to go to court with you. I'm not going to do mediation. I'm not going to sign an entry of appearance. Instead, I'm just going to prepare the documents for you. That is a flat fee model that I think is fantastic and would help serve that other 75%. Again, you can't do it, because if you do it as an automated document assembly, which is really the only economic way of doing it, you can only charge for pushing the button.
Yeah. Lots there that we all need to think about. And I'm with you. I'm with you. And AI is just going to, automation, document automation sort of pushed a little bit, but the AI stuff's really, really going to push it. And it's, I think through, you've got the courts and the rules sort of like a dam right now, but you think back to, sort of the Blockbuster Netflix, Blockbuster could not really change its own model. It's sort of half-heartedly tried. It's going to take people coming out from outside, from a grassroots level, to sort of swarm, I suspect. But let's move to non-lawyer ownership real quick. Loaded topic. I'm sure you've experienced. And it's interesting, when anybody thinks about it, obviously everybody looks at Arizona and they think private equity and institutional money. That's what they think. And sure, that could happen. Maybe even technology companies. But even from a more fundamental level, one question I have is why would anybody be against letting a law firm owner give or cut in some of their own employees into equity in their firm? It aligns interests. It allows employees to perhaps have growth along with the firm, maybe incentivizes them a little bit. Maybe it's sort of golden handcuff type things. There's all sorts of reasons why, if nothing else, let a law firm owner let its employees have equity. I don't know. Let's start there. What do you think about that?
Oh, I'm completely with you, right? I mean, out here in San Francisco, the employees, the key employees, get an ownership interest, right, in these startups, and they go off and make zero, or they make $20 million. So I think bringing on your employees, you can attract more talent that way. You can attract more experienced talent that way. Like you said, you can it builds loyalty to the company if they have ownership mentality. So giving or allowing your team to buy in I think is great, and it only works to the benefit of the company. Why will regulators not let you do that? Great question. Because they fear that lawyers would be told by a majority owner to do something in a case that is not in the client's interest or is contrary to the rules of professionalism. And so they basically, that's their fear, is that the judgment of the lawyer is replaced by the non-lawyer. And that is something that can be worked around with the creation of, like compliance counsel, to make sure that the independent judgment of the lawyer remains intact. Can also be handled with never letting non-lawyers have more than a non-majority interest, right? You can buy up to 49%, but that's as far as you can go. But they won't even try it. They won't even try it. Arizona tried it with their ABS program. It's done in England, it's done in Australia, but the US regulators won't even try it, because I feel like they enjoy this monopoly. We get to charge a lot of money. We have good lifestyles, and opening it up to non-lawyers, you're letting, the riffraff in.
Well, there's a whole pool of really, really great talent that law firms can't really tap into. I mean, you're in the heart of the technology, spot in America. Part of it is the way you recruit the really, really good people is you got to give them equity. And you get a really strong non-lawyer operations technology type person, and they say, wait, what? I don't get any upside. They're not coming.
Yeah.
And it just really, I think, from an innovation standpoint, holds law firms back.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, imagine if I could offer a tech person here equity to come in and develop AI solutions for clients, really in the interest of the client, right? To have that sort of automation, that independence, that efficiency, but can't do it. There's no way I can compete with OpenAI or Salesforce here in this city. I can't do it.
So I do have this theory. I'll run it by you. People who have probably heard me say this before, but so I'll pick on the boomers a little bit. But boomers have basically, as they've grown through their life, they bend society to their will. When they're young, they get whatever they want, and now that they're getting older, they're going to get what they want. And a lot of these lawyers who are at the end of their career, they're realizing, hey, I got nobody to sell it to. So maybe as a generation that come together and they're going to say, all right, it's time to change the rules. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you could be right. I think this is the moment to change these things. AI is a complete game changer. I don't even know where to start talking about that. But the value of your practice, right? I have a family member here in town who works in equity, and he works deals all over the country, all over the world. And so we were at a kid's birthday party, and we were talking about each other's weeks, and he said, I got to fly off to Zurich or something to close on this deal next week. And I said, oh, well, how big is it? And he goes, well, the revenue is only 23 million a year, but they're going to pay $500 million for this company. What? That's like 20x. What is this? What is this? And he goes, well, you just sprinkle a little technology on it. Suddenly it's worth $500 million. I'm like, lawyers, these are numbers that you can reach if you allow innovation, if you allow, non-lawyer ownership, if you allow the sale of these things. Your practice will have value if you invest and do it in technology. But the rule, like I said, the rules have locked us into place, into stagnation, and we're going to become dinosaurs.
Well, I like that. Sprinkle on some technology. That's given me some thoughts, and hopefully people out there listening, figure out ways to, implement technology, hopefully proprietary technology that maybe can add some value to your firm. But let's talk about AI real quick. Like I said, there's no way we're going to get through everything I wanted to talk to you about, but I am curious, what sorts of things are you and your firm using AI? How are you implementing that at your firm?
Oh gosh, a lot of ways. So, I use it every day. I used it this morning. I don't even remember what I was talking about. I think it was a rule change or something that I wanted to ask about. So I use it as a resource for information to help really answer questions that I'm kind of too afraid to ask anybody else about, because lawyers, we always think we know the answer and we're afraid to say we don't. So AI gives us the anonymity to ask questions that we don't know the answers to. But as far as operationally, what do? We actually have an agent that is part of our onboarding, part of our development, that works with objections, evidentiary objections, hearsay. And so we have these new lawyers that come in who don't know evidence, and they talk to this agent that makes objections and responds to that. We call it Billy Bot Thornton. And that is an agent that we've created that reviews billing entries, right? So if you're a new lawyer and you're afraid that you're not doing this entry right, you keep BillyBot open here, you copy your entry, put it over there, and ask BillyBot what he thinks about this entry. He will give you 3 options for how to change it. And that's an agent that one of our staff members created all on their own. It's called Second Nature, which is a piece of software that we use and have trained up to work on how to close a sale, how to make sure that when you're talking to this client in a consultation, that you have a higher conversion rate. And so this AI agent gives feedback to the new lawyer about, you should have said this, you said too much of that, you did this many you talked for this amount of time while the agent only talked for this amount of time. So we've got AI everywhere in all of our operations. And HR, we uploaded all of our all our manuals and policies and procedures so that people can talk. We keep an IT support channel open for everybody so that they can say, the dog ate my laptop, what do I do? And so the agent actually has taken the entire database of previous requests, and we've uploaded that, and the agent knows how to respond.
Oh.
So you just have to use it, get used to it, and start.
So let's ask about that. So, because it can be overwhelming. So, and you've got probably more resources than many firms, but do you have somebody on staff that is in charge of AI, or is it just sort of anybody can do anything? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I've seen these firms that have, or well, not firms, but businesses that have AI directors or whatever. Interesting idea. I don't know enough about it yet. I'm not ready to do anything like that. Instead, we have an IT department that's broken into two areas. One is support and one is development. And the development team uses AI a lot. We use AI on our client portal, and so they kind of oversee the implementation of AI. But with that said, AI is such a new technology. No one is trained on AI. No one, went to school or got their degree. Anybody who says they got their degree in AI, I would really like, what? Because it's like too new. So we
School of
give
hard
everybody
knocks,
a
man.
license. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Get out there and use it. Get out there and use it. And so I give everybody on our team, all 160 employees, if they want a license, to get a license to Chat GPT. And I encourage people to use it. Like, and I think that once you kind of have a casual conversation with it, and you ask it about the news, or you say, what do I do with something that's not professionally related, that you get a little easier, you get a little more comfortable using it. And then you begin to think about, gee, I could probably do this. Well, what about this project? What about this person? What about this research? And so you decide to check with ChatGPT and you just get more used to it and work it in.
So one question I have, so, for me, just me as an individual, I can implement AI, I can use it, I can do a lot of things. But then as you start to roll it out to a bigger organization, it seems to me that it could get, do you have a bunch of individuals using it, various different ways, or do you have a way to, if you create an agent, that it can be rolled out to everybody and everybody's sort of using the same thing? How do you manage that across a big organization?
Yeah, I mean, the development team kind of oversees the development of agents if people need that help. But like my chief of staff, she designed BillyBot without ever even talking to the development team. Learned how to use it and did it. And so, I mean, I don't want to create too much structure around it because I think that's limiting. I don't know what I don't know. And so I just let the team members go do their thing. And everybody's so worried about, the hallucinations that come when you draft a document and case sites and things like that. We just don't use it for that, you know? And when I ask it a question about something substantive, I always double check it. So, I think it's pretty low risk to give people access to AI and to build their own agents if they can figure out how to do it.
So for people out there that maybe are dabbling or maybe haven't really taken the plunge yet, what advice would you give to start using the AI in your practice?
I would say start with something small and reasonable. Put your HR documents in there. Put some body of information that you have accumulated and move that into AI and ask it to analyze it. Ask it to give you thoughts on it. I don't know what that might be. We've got, I think I said 50,000 pages of billing that we put into BillyBot, but I don't know that that's the case. But you have a reservoir of information that you could begin to work with, and you don't have to set out to design the killer app. You just try it.
Do you have an AI that you prefer? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini? Do you use them all?
Yeah, well, no. I only use ChatGPT and OpenAI. In my opinion, this is Highlander, right? There can be only one, and it will be ChatGPT. It will be OpenAI. So I don't really spend too much time looking at other stuff. I know that they have specialized agents. Most of the time, the backbone is OpenAI. They don't tell you that, but they're actually using OpenAI. But yeah, that's where we invest, and they're right over the hill here. Nothing like going downtown San Francisco to the dog patch and seeing the IT people running around there. Absolutely amazing.
So, like I said, you're right in the center of it. So I can't imagine what sort of conversations you're having with the tech people. So, what sorts of things? I'm just curious if you know, or what you're hearing. What's coming that we haven't seen yet? I mean, how amazing is this stuff going to get?
Have you tried Sora 2 yet?
I have not.
Okay.
Got to go try that.
Yeah, Sora 2. It's going to be the end of evidence. I don't know what to say. The court's going to have to figure something out, but it's the end of evidence. And yeah, I mean,
what do you mean by that? Tell me. What do you mean by that?
It can manufacture anything and everything and make it look 100%. Video will look, 100% authentic. You will not be able to distinguish a video that's created on Sora 2 from the real thing. All of that is, and you imagine the courtroom. It's going to spend a week trying to authenticate a 15-second video from an ATM machine, right? It can't work that way, because everything, the authenticity of everything is going to be challenged. And that's what I mean by it's the end of evidence, because functionally we can't spend all that time trying to authenticate an exhibit. What are we going to do? So I don't know what is coming for law on that front, but Sora 2 is a big thing coming. OpenAI's new chatbot will be released next year, which it just is mind blowing for that they are able to do this that quickly. I mean, what else is coming? There's just a million agents out there that are coming our way. I don't know. It's
So let me ask this
going to
question.
move so fast.
So one of the things that we're starting to see, people have been telling me, it's the 75% of the folks that can't afford lawyers are now
Mhm.
drafting their own pleadings with ChatGPT and
Mhm.
filing these things in the courts. I imagine we are entering an age where there will be voluminous motions and filings and all sorts of stuff that just overwhelm the courts. Are you seeing this, and do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. I got an email, oh, I don't know, the last couple of days that was clearly drafted by, an AI agent. And it even still had the, insert name here thing. So yeah, I mean, clients are out there trying to find answers, trying to find ways because they're not being provided. The legal profession is missing that 75%. And we're fiddlers on a roof right now, trying to maintain our balance, trying to do the practice of law. And unless we get in front of this and begin to find ways to service that 75%, they are going to figure out ways to do it without us that will bleed into the 25% that we do service. We will become obsolete if we don't figure out a way to get in front of this and begin to service that 75%, meet their needs. They won't need to go to ChatGPT. Meet their needs for a reasonable price.
So, so I want to circle back. We're getting close on time here. Back to your role in the innovative task force, and the frustration that you're encountering in Colorado. Are you talking to others in similar positions around the country, and are you seeing any other? I mean, obviously Arizona opened it up. Are there any other states that seem to be seriously considering maybe changing their rules that you know of?
I think the ABA has really, put their foot down in a hard way to make sure nobody really engages in these serious discussions. Washington State their task force just released their report. I think it was within the last couple of weeks. I could be wrong. I could be wrong by a year, but I just got their task force report and it was very good. I think it's a great place to start. They didn't talk about rule changes. They did not talk about 1.5. The American Institute for Legal Studies, or ILES, I don't remember what that stands for, but they're doing a great job of trying to meet the needs and have talked about rule changes. But yeah, other than Arizona and Utah, really those are the hotbeds. I would love to make Colorado one of those, and that's my argument. And I'm going to keep pitching it for the next 2 months, see how far it gets me.
So are you guys issuing a report in a couple months? Is that the
Well, the preliminary report is due beginning of December, but there's just no way. I mean, I'm being called into meetings left and right, and I just don't know how we're gonna be able to produce a recommendation that goes beyond we need more time. But we'll keep trying. I think there's consensus. I got a bunch of emails this morning of people talking about, I really want to work on 5.4. I really, these are major players, big firms, and I would love to get the CEOs from each of the major firms in Colorado to come in and talk about how they're limited, what they would like to see happen. Why would we not want to talk to these people?
well? I want to see that report when you issue it. Please send me a copy.
Definitely.
But so you've been very generous with your time. So I'm curious. We've talked about a lot. There's a lot we didn't talk about, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure we do talk about?
Gosh, I don't think so. I think, I can say that if you are starting out, cover two bases really well. Cover your finances and cover your legal side. Get somebody to help you set up your legal documents. Get somebody to help you with the finances. It's expensive, but it's the best money you'll spend.
And I'll say, there are people like you out there across the country pushing on this innovation. And I would say to the younger lawyers and even not so young, I think it's going to happen. It may not be tomorrow, but it's going to happen. So you need to plan accordingly and don't stick your head in the sand, is
Oh
what I
God,
would
no.
say.
Yep.
Um,
Be a dinosaur.
so last question, talked a little bit. You've got a pretty clear strategic plan, it sounds like, for your firm. You're opening in Georgia. I assume you've got some other states you're looking at to be rolling out in the future.
Yeah, I don't want to tip people off to that yet,
Yeah.
but we do need more East Coast presence, so that's our focus.
Well, it's exciting to see. Well, Dave, thanks for coming on. So appreciate all of this. I think it's really important, the stuff you're doing, and really, really impressive, the growth and the scale that you've achieved in 8 years. I mean, that's phenomenal. That really is. And so if there's anybody out there that wants to reach out, find you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Dave.johnson@modernfamilylaw.com. That's the best email to get in touch with me, or LinkedIn. I actually read those messages, even if they're advertisements. So, yeah.
Real quick, so on LinkedIn, I know that you talk about these things about non-lawyer ownership. I'm sure you get some serious pushback. Hate, maybe we'll call it
Yeah.
hate. Some trolls. What do you want to call it?
Yeah, I know it's hate mail for sure.
Yeah.
But what I find, and this is encouraging to me, is some of those hate mailers or the people who are so adamantly opposed to it, they start coming around, and then eventually they get there because it just makes sense. If you just can get out of the gaslighting that our profession has done to lawyers, then it just makes sense. And you begin to see, I can get that 75%. Why don't I go for that 75%? I don't have to focus on this 25 and kill myself. So yeah, the hate mail, the haters on LinkedIn, some of them have come around.
But Dave, this is how we've always done it. So we got to keep doing it this way.
Right? Oh my God, they'll be extinct in a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, cool. Again, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It has been fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.